2 weeks ago, I signed up for an XTERRA Triathlon, which doesn't sound like a massive deal, other than the fact that it is only 8 weeks away. I'm 49 years old. I'm on a bunch of medications as a result of a kidney transplant some years ago. Some of those meds which are making it quite difficult for me to tolerate exercise. And like a lot of people my age, I'm dealing with a bunch of old injuries. So in this video, I'm going to show you what I've done over the last couple of weeks to get ready. I'll break down a VO2 max test I did on myself, look at my runs and rides, and some of the things that I've been doing previously in my Stretch Yourself Strong system, which has helped me to get to this point despite a low training volume. So if you're over 35 and you want to know what it takes to train hard without breaking, or just want to know what it's like to try and get to the start line of something like this, hopefully without being broken, please stay tuned. The idea of me signing up for this isn't to win it. It's really to see what I can do in terms of the tools I have for myself. I spend so much time rebuilding other people in my clinic, and I've realized that there's so many things about myself that I've let go and just haven't turned my own tools on myself, which is just ridiculous. So it's really just to see, I guess, what I'm capable of at this age and with those conditions, and to get to something like this XTERRA Triathlon. So to figure out where I need to go, I need to figure out where I started. So I ran a VO2 max test on myself, and it didn't necessarily go to plan. I did make a few mistakes with this. One is that I chose too aggressive a protocol. I chose a protocol that I would use with my experienced athletes in my clinic, and it meant that I just didn't have the legs on the bike. And you know, a lot of people do complain about bike VO2 tests in that they fatigue before they ran out of gas, and that was certainly the case with me. I should have chosen a less aggressive protocol. I made a super rookie error of not having my heart rate monitor on, so I ran it for 5 minutes. Rookie error. Have a rest for 5 minutes and come back. And then had to stop, rested for a little bit, not long enough. And so I was already in a little bit of a pre-fatigue state, which we can see if we look at some of the data here. So if we look at my RER, which is your respiratory exchange ratio, I did hit that quite high quite early. And what that means is that your body is utilizing carbohydrate early. This is probably the result of not resting long enough, but it's probably also the result of the volume that I've done in the last 2 weeks has probably been a little bit too much. So I'm probably almost overreaching already, slightly in a pre-fatigue state. So that could have factored into that high RER early. And I probably just wasn't rested enough from the previous day's training, but really this was the only chance that I had to do this in terms of squeezing it in with my clients and my training, etc. So it's not ideal, but it is a starting point. So we look at the VO2 chart from my test. It certainly isn't a steady increase in effort. We can see there is a very, very steep increase in effort. And as I said, that's probably due to a too aggressive protocol. We started at 125 watts and looked at 25 watt increase a minute, which was just too much. And also given certainly in a pre-fatigue state as well, which is probably indicative of that very steep increase early. That red line represents my anaerobic threshold, which it doesn't have it on here, was only around 145 beats a minute. My max heart rate there was around 172, which certainly isn't the max heart rate I've been getting in my exercise lately. Ride the other day, I sustained around 183, and I did stupidly hit a ride recently where I had 202 beats per minute, which I don't highly recommend for you. In looking at the result itself, we're looking at just over 50 milliliters per kilogram per minute, which certainly is not going to get me on the Tour de France, and it isn't amazing, but it is a starting point. And you know, I think if it was a running test, I would have got higher, but I'm going to run with that, and that's how I'm going to repeat the test later on as well. So I decided to do a video analysis of my own running, given that it's something I do all the time in here with some amazing runners, and I'm not sure why I haven't done it myself, but running is something I haven't done a huge amount of over the last few years, given a old knee injury from jiu-jitsu that really hasn't been cooperating with things like running. So that is going to need some attention, and it has been getting some attention and probably paying off due to some of the attention I've been giving it, which is great. I did a 4K run just to see what I could do that in. It's probably the first I've run in some time, which was just over 20 minutes, which I think is a reasonable start. But you know, nothing compared to my old times. The last triathlon I did was 9 years ago, and at that time I was running 3-minute Ks on repeats. And so 5-minute Ks doesn't sound amazing, but it's certainly not a bad place to start. My goal, rather than look to increase my running time or my running distance, is to try and maintain that 5-minute pace and add around 500 meters a week, because I just don't think I'm going to be able to sustain huge running volumes. And I always say to my runners, you don't need to run the race before the race. So if I don't run the 10Ks before it doesn't matter. But I think if I can get up to that 8K mark at a 5-minute pace, I will be doing very well with that. So in terms of my technique, I videoed it every few minutes just to see what changed. It started off looking okay. I certainly could have got those heels up a little bit higher. I do often have issues around my running due to all the scar tissue around my hip from my transplant surgery. So it's something that I need to be conscious of, and something that I find quite useful on a treadmill in terms of trying to correct my technique and making sure that hip still moves forward. But I think I do compensate a little bit with my shoulder. And definitely as the running goes on, you can see I start to get less movement through my left shoulder blade. Majority of the rides have been on the indoor bike. I've been spending a lot of time on that, mainly doing some tempo work. There really just isn't time over 8 weeks to build a base. I've got to hopefully depend on the fact that, surfing most days has been enough to keep me there aerobically. I just really need to push that intensity now. It's just not long enough to really worry about training aerobically. We need to get that top end effort happening. Been changing up my workouts. So really over the course of this year, I've more been focusing on getting stronger, but now we need to look at building some endurance in. So I've been looking at running any weight sort of stuff more as circuits. I certainly have been very grateful to have my own Stretch Yourself Strong routine that I do every morning, which I think has really helped in terms of pulling up from a lot of this training okay, with this massive increase in volume. I am somewhat surprised how I have been pulling up, but I shouldn't talk too soon. But I'm aware that there's been things that I've been missing out of my own system that I haven't been using. So in the phase 4 of Stretch Yourself Strong, we look at the fact that range of motion is different under different conditions. So range of motion is different under different loads and certainly different under different speeds. I just haven't been doing anything in regards to addressing that phase 4, how it's different under speed. And I was concerned on a run the other day just around the feeling in my ankles. And I realized that whilst I am doing isometrics for things like my calves, Achilles, etc., I'm not doing any explosive isometrics. And so that's certainly something that I'll be bringing into my training going forward, because it's a great way to get some resilience around that constant pounding, especially as we're increasing volume. But what's really interesting is taking all these things, and I've seen how these things have worked for other athletes and how well they've done, but I just cannot get my head around why I haven't applied it all to myself. But I guess I haven't had a focus like this. So having something to focus on like this and see how, especially that Stretch Yourself Strong stuff, does apply to my getting to that start line, which is obviously the main concern for everyone who signs up for something like this. And unless you are a competitive athlete, you want to get there and you want to get it done. So I really think that has helped me at the moment tolerating this increase in volume, and I think it's going to pay dividends getting through to race 2, hopefully. So the plan is over the next 8 weeks, I'm going to document all the things I'm doing training. I'm going to some more specifics around what I'm doing, and I'm happy to answer any questions, anything you want to know. Hopefully won't be documenting too many setbacks, but whatever happens, I'm going to share it here. Please subscribe. I'm sure you'll all get some insights out of it for your own training, and see you in the next one.